another super speedway race, another ending where I go and look at it and I go, why do they do this 4 times a year? Why do they do this, once a year at points like this with a finish? The 2021 Daytona 500, and for the second year in a row, the Daytona 500 has been hyped up as this is going to be an amazing race. It's going to be the best 500 in years, and just like 2020, it fell below the mark, and this one fell way below the mark. Um, it was legitimately, of the top three series, the worst race of the weekend. There's no denying that at all. You go and you look at all the races that were held in Daytona, it was probably the second worst to ARCA, if not even just as bad as ARCA. You know, it was just, it was not a good race at all, no matter which way you slice it. There was very little good, if anything, good about the only good thing about the race was the winner. The finish wasn't even good. The racing wasn't good. It had good racing for 13 laps, and then they caused the big one and ruined the rest of the race. That's about all the race had. It was not a good race, no matter how you slice it. You could look at it from many different angles. It had a very, very cool winner, and a winner that everyone could be happy about. That doesn't change the fact that the race was terrible. You know, like Michael McDowell won, which was really, really cool. It was very cool to see an underdog winner in the 500, an underdog team winner in the 500. But the race itself was not good. The finish itself was not good, and I just have to wonder how many more times we're gonna have, crashes like this at the end of super speedway races, and not do much to change it. I know I've gotten in the soapbox before about super speedway racing now is the most dangerous it's been in a long, long time. Um, and I think the end of the race really solidified that. You know, I'm I'm not saying to completely overhaul it and you know change it drastically and go the complete opposite direction and make it bad. I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is you can change some things, and I'll talk about those things that they can change. But so basically, the race started a little after 3. They got, what, 14 laps in before the big one occurred, as second place Almirola got turned into Bowman, and it caused like 16 cars to crash or something. All were good cars as well. So, all cars that were going to be racing up there with a shot to win, that was basically over. Then lightning hits. Then they had a rain delay that lasted for forever. They finally got back going into the late uh, hours of the night. So much for East Coast viewers. It's all about the West Coast viewers. But they they raced into the late hours of the night. Um, it ended Monday morning, and the racing throughout the night was single file. So many people were saying, obviously, they're just riding, which, to be fair, stage one, I can understand it. Stage two, I can understand it. You're getting another yellow, which will, set the field back up, and really, their stages. You don't want to wreck your car going for a stage win. That wouldn't that wouldn't be smart. Then we got to stage three, and they did the same thing, and they never tried to break it. The only time the single file train was ever really broken in the race was stage ends or pit stops. That was the only time the single file train was ever broken. Um, and people were wondering like why. Well, Kevin Harvick said in a post-race interview that there were so few good cars left that he, they just couldn't do it. You needed help. You needed a lot of help to go with you. Not only that, but as Larry Reynolds pointed out during the race, the air was really, really dense. There was fog coming over the racetrack, and that dense air obviously has tighter packed molecules in the air. It has water vapor, stuff like that, and it's gonna make it's increasing drag because your car's to cut through all that stuff. It's making it harder. The resistance against your car going forward is a lot greater than if it was just not dense air. So the cars would step out, right, And I think that made a really big difference as well because you would step out to try and make a move, right? And you would just immediately hit a wall of air. Like, even more than normal, right? You step out, you get out of line, and you just hit a wall of air. But now you're hitting dense air. So if you move out and you don't have a lot of people with you, you're not going anywhere. You needed more than 5 people to go with you to make that inside work. You are not going to do it with just 3 or 4 guys and then have people come down and join you. You needed probably 5 people to even get it to start working, and then you probably needed more to try and jump down in front of you to make it work. You know, you just weren't going to be able to do it. And with so few cars left, there wasn't enough teamwork to be able to do that. And the fact that manufacturer alliances now, right? If a Toyota doesn't want to push a Ford to victory lane, a Ford doesn't want to push a Chevy doesn't want to push a Toyota, all this different stuff. Manufacturer alliances are ruining super speedway races right before our eyes. You know, it's just how it is. Back in the 2000s, the early 2010s, sure you would try and go with your teammate whenever you could, but if your teammate made a bad move, you weren't going with them. And now it's expanded to if you're a manufacturer teammate. If a Hendrick Motorsports Chase Elliott doesn't go with an RCR Austin Dillon and Dillon's making a move for the win, then Chevrolet is going to get angry because then a Chevy driver just left a Chevy driver out to dry to push a Ford driver to victory lane. They're not going to like that, So that's how super speedway racing is now. It's a huge alliance of manufacturers that are just, you know, they're working together too much. It's never been like this ever since everyone tried to replicate it after Joe Gibbs did in 2016, where they dominated the Daytona 500. They had basically all their cars at the front, and they finished side by side. And then that kind of went away. People tried to replicate, but they didn't have the same success until the 2018 Talladega Fall race, where SHR was so fast they could drive away from the field as everyone else battled back behind. SHR was completely content with riding 1, 2, 3, 4. No matter who was out in front, the person out in front was going to win that race on the final restart if it didn't come down to fuel strategy, which it then did and ruined their whole plan. But then SHR did that, and ever since SHR did that, it has now been, how can we do that same thing? How can we try and do that? You're not going to be able to do it, but how can we try and do that same thing like that? And now manufacturers just don't want to leave each other. You just don't want to go to the other manufacturer and push them forward, because then you'll probably get talking to from the general manager of racing operations from your manufacturer. So that's a shame. It's how it is, though. That's super speedway racing, I guess. But so pit strategy happened. Denny Hamlin dominated. He almost led 100 laps of the 200 run. He actually got screwed on pit road, actually. So the Toyotas came in later than anyone. Fords came in first, Chevys in the middle, then Toyotas last. That was in stage 3, the final pit stop of the race. And Denny Hamlin pits. There's very few Toyotas in the race. Obviously, Toyota is the least represented manufacturer. They got in a way. They're all spread out. Denny Hamlin leads them off, and he's all by himself. He can't do anything. The field blasts around him. And he falls back around 7th or 8th. Tries to make a move. No one goes with him. He falls back outside the top 10. And can only recover back up to like 8th or 9th before the last lap crash, getting him up to 5th. So, that just shows how bad it was. The dominant car couldn't really do anything because he had no friends with him. And no one's going to step out with him. No one's going to push Denny Hamlin to his 3rd straight 500, especially if it's not a Toyota. So then, this sets up for the finish, with Fords riding inside the top 5, 2 from Penske, 2 from SHR, and 1 from FRM, Front Row Motorsports. And they're riding. You have some Chevys back behind them. You have some Toyotas, but it's top 5 Fords, and that was really the biggest thing at that point. They ride. No one's making a move. We're getting down 25, 20, 15 to go. Some people step out with 10 to go. It shuffles Cole Custer out. So now Cole Custer's out of the pack. Now it's 4 Fords and a few Chevys back behind them. We're waiting. Get to 5 to go. Still no one's making a move. No one can. 4 to go. 3 to go. And we finally get down to that, and Brad Keselowski starts trying to do stuff. He's backing up to Michael McDowell back behind him and creates a huge gap to Kevin Harvick. He finally makes his move with 2 to go, shuffles Harvick out, but it's an easy block that Joey can make, and he makes the block. So now it's Penske 1-2 with Michael McDowell in third, coming to the white flag. It's still basically a single file train. Some people start trying some stuff. Austin Dillon pulls low. He's trying to make something work. Doesn't work at all. Some of the Toyotas are starting to come back. But down the backstretch, Keselowski backs up just a little bit to Michael McDowell. Just a little bit. McDowell gives him the push. They start tandeming towards the front. Brad tries to make a move. At the same time he makes that move, Joey turns left to block. At the same time when all that happens, McDowell tries to turn left to go with Keselowski and barely clips him in the rear. And then what you see on your screen ensued. Logano spins down to the inside in the grass. Keselowski spins back up the track in front of the pack, hitting the wall head on, and at the same time getting hit by Kyle Busch in the door, sending the two into the catch fence with the rear end of the car, then exploding the fuel cell, causing a massive fire, which was engulfing drivers like Cole Custer, Bubba Wallace, Austin Cindric. Busch got hit a few more times by Cindric and others. Logano came up and absolutely clobbered Ross Chastain. And we had one of the worst crashes that you can see in racing, besides like Ryan Newman's crash and some of them. This was some of the hardest hits you'll see in a wreck. It was a terrible, terrible crash. And through all this, Michael McDowell gets away as the yellow comes out and wins the race. A very, very warranted yellow after seeing a car fly into the fence and explode its fuel cell. Absolutely. They called the yellow immediately. Props to NASCAR. I would have done the same thing. It was a terrible crash and definitely deserved the yellow it got. People who are like, oh, they should have let them race back. No, not in that sense. I mean, fire in cars and people in the fence and people getting hit every which way like Kyle Busch. That's not good. Even had Keselowski's tire flying through the air like a damn weapon. So then they show the cars. Keselowski's already out at this point, so it's good to see he's okay. But they cut to Kyle Busch's car and he's not out the window that side. And I'm like, oh my god, like they've done something to Kyle Busch and it's not good. Luckily though, he was okay and he got out under his own power. But it was very, very scary for a few moments in the Discord. Seeing no movement in the 18 and just an AMR safety guy there at his window. But fortunately, Kyle is okay. But still scary stuff, right? And that's where we get to the topic of the Super Speedway package and what can be done, right? So, I would say it has the best Super Speedway racing that we've seen when they race and don't crash it and do stuff. It has the best Super Speedway racing we've seen since the 2001 season, right? What do those two seasons have in common but the Wicker Bill? The Wicker is basically like another spoiler. So in present day NASCAR, the Wicker sits on the spoiler to make it an inch taller to increase drag, right? Back in 2001, the Wicker sat on the roof. It was basically a roof spoiler. That's basically what it was. It was just to increase drag. What increasing drag does then is it punches a bigger hole in the air. It's like going behind a tractor trailer down the interstate. It's against the law to tailgate a tractor trailer. You can do that to save fuel because it's such a huge truck. You can ride behind it. You're getting a draft off it because it's punching a huge hole in the air. You can just basically lift out the gas. You don't have to hit the gas because it's kind of pulling you forward if you're so close to that truck. There's no air on your car. It's helping you save fuel. So it's cutting through the air for you. That's what this is doing. The Wicker, with it being 9 inches of spoiler now, and I don't know how big the air punch was back in 2001. I don't think it was as big as it was now, but it was the biggest we've seen at the time. Punches such a huge hole in the air, you get huge runs. It has nothing to do with the horsepower they have or anything. It has all to do with the big spoilers that they run, right? I think about the truck series; they run pretty decently sized spoilers. They get pretty decent runs, but it's nothing compared to the truck or the Cup runs. You look at the Cup Series races; they get massive runs, um, sometimes too big of runs, and that's where it kind of comes in. How big is too big of a run? Well, I think we see it with this package. So I mentioned, it's the best Super Speedway package we've had, the current day one, since 2001. But it's also the most dangerous we've had since 2001. I think of Super Speedway packages where it's caused some of the biggest crashes, and 2001, you think about the Daytona 500 big one. Um, you think about the fall Talladega race, the big one on the last lap with the Bonnie flipping over. Granted, it had a Talladega race go caution free that season, but it was still a very dangerous package that they ran in 2001. Now you think about the current day package, right? They've run it in what now? Is this the eighth race they've run in? They ran it 3 in 2019, 4 last year, and now this one. So they've run it in 8 points paying races. In those 8 points paying races, right, we've had Kyle Larson flying to the inside wall on his side because he was flipping. We've had Brendan Gaughan do a barrel roll above the pack and fortunately not land on anyone or land roof down onto anyone like Ryan Newman. Then obviously we have the Ryan Newman crash. They kept it fairly clean at Talladega. They kept it kind of clean at Daytona. Then we go to Talladega. Kurt Busch flies in the air above the pack, lands on Cole Custer. And now we have this 500. Brad Keselowski into the fence, on fire, and the fire engulfing other drivers. So in 8 Super Speedway races with this package, we've had 5 scary crashes. That's 5 scary crashes. 5 crashes that involve people getting air, right? That's just not good. Those are terrible odds. That's more than half. In more than half the races run with this package, you've had incidents that were dangerous, very dangerous. Not even just like, obviously there's always a danger in racing, but like this is just increasing the danger so much. It doesn't need to be like this. How many Super Speedway races, how many Daytona 500s do you have to end with a bunch of crashes and a bunch of torn up equipment? And, me not going, oh, cool, Michael McDowell just won this race. Me going, oh my God, is Brad okay? And then, oh my God, is Kyle okay? It shouldn't be like that. I should not be on the last lap in turns 3 and 4, and instead, this is the second year in a row I didn't focus on the winner of the race. I was more focused on the terrible crash that happened behind him because I didn't know if the guy was okay. It's 2 years in a row now, the Daytona 500. I didn't know. I didn't care how close the 500 finish was. I didn't last year. I didn't care about that. I cared about the car that got hit on the roof. I didn't care this year if Michael McDowell was ahead of Chase Elliott or that Michael McDowell won. I cared if Brad was okay because that's just how it is now. That's Super Speedway racing now. There are some runs that people get that are too big to block. However, when it comes down to the end, nothing is too big to block. It's the last lap of the 500. You're gonna take the run, and everyone's gonna take the run, and whoever the leader is gonna try and block it. Because if you don't try and block it, then it's just not gonna, you're gonna lose. If you lose lead in turn 3 on the last lap, you're not winning it because Joey had no help. His only thing he could do there was try and block the advance, and it was gonna be very, very hard to do. Obviously, seen there was a very small chance that every car made it through that block alive, and obviously they didn't. Um, but that's just how it is now. Some runs are too big to block. And during the race, some people understand that. It's still hard to kind of get into some people's minds, like some people who have um, been around the old Gen 6 Super Speedway racing, like Joey Logano, Denny Hamlin, those drivers, right? They wanna block every run that comes at them because they were able to do it back in 2016, 2015, 2014, 2017. They were able to do it. It wasn't impossible to make runs onto the leader, but it was a lot easier to block it, right? And if someone got to your outside with a big run, you knew you couldn't block it because that was a massive run. Now it's almost like every run is too big to block, and you can't because otherwise you're going to be wrecking the field, as we saw at the end of the 500. Granted, it's for a 500 win. That's just basically that's just Super Speedway racing now. Is that you're gonna die trying to win that race, and some people have died trying to win that race. Um, like Joey Logano, Frank Keselowski, Ryan Newman. They all tried stuff, but they all ended up in these terrible crashes. So honestly, right? Looking at this, if I'm NASCAR, I understand they want to run the tapered spacer 550 horsepower package here. However, they just they need to just lower the horsepower. I know they lowered the horsepower after the Daytona 500 last year, right? And they're like, this will make a huge difference. It didn't make any difference whatsoever. The runs are still huge because they're still running 9 inches of spoiler, right? What they need to do is lower the horsepower and lower the spoilers because they're already going so fast. If you lower the spoilers, they're just going to go even faster, which is going to be terrible. They're going to be at like literally so far past takeoff speed then that any time they spin around, they're going to be like getting air, which isn't good. They need to lower the speeds a little bit, I think. But they also need to reduce the spoiler in the rear. That is the biggest problem right now. Is that they are getting too big of runs, and it's dangerous. You know that is dangerous stuff. You just can't be having that every single Super Speedway race that we do. Over half have ended with this terrible crash. So they need to do something, but they probably won't. They obviously didn't really do much after Newman's crash. They're kind of living on this thing of our cars are so safe. Look at the people who have climbed away from these crashes, and that is the worst mentality to have in sports. Is our cars are so safe. No one, this can't happen to us because stuff happened in 2000 and 2001. You know, people started dying, and then once finally some big star, their biggest driver, ended up passing away, they went, "Oh, maybe we should do something." Because NASCAR's always been reactive. They've never really been proactive. You think about the safer barrier. Sure, I mean, it was still in testing at the time, so they couldn't really do anything about it. But the Hans device, they could have easily implemented that. They could have made drivers do it, but they didn't want to because some drivers were so against it. But there have been so many safety initiatives where they've been so reactive to issues, and this is a time where they could be proactive and do something before someone flies into a fence roof first and whatever happens. But it's just not good. If you keep racing like this, the odds are at some point someone's gonna get really, really injured or worse. And I hope it doesn't happen. I'm not hoping that happens. I'm just hoping that before it happens, they do something to change it. I understand they used to, they still used to wreck a ton of cars back with the other package. It wasn't even this package. Like 2017, 2018, 2019, they wrecked so many cars in the 500. I get that. However, those crashes were a lot less brutal than what we've seen with this package. They run so fast, they run into it, and you're hard into someone's door, stuff like that. It's so bad. And anything they can do, man, to make this racing safer. I don't want to see them go completely the opposite direction and make it where like you can't pass, but like the trucks have a great balance where their spoilers are high enough to create a big hole in the air to create nice runs, but they're also small enough to where they don't create massive runs. And I think that's something NASCAR should look into, but they won't. They just won't. I know they won't. The Super Speedway package is fun when they're racing. When they start crashing, it's a terrible reminder about how dangerous it is, and about how sometimes how stupid it is. It's fun to watch until they do stuff like that, and then then why are we doing this? It's it's all fun and games until the crash happens, I guess. But in other words, congrats to Michael McDowell winning the Daytona 500. That was really, really cool. It may have been a bad 500. It might have had the lowest green flag passes for any 500 in the loop data era. It only had 2,755. Tracks like Texas, Homestead, Darlington, Pocono can get more than that on average. So that just shows how very little passing there was in this race. I believe probably most of that happened before the red flag, most of those passes. But that's it. We have the road course next. Hopefully, it'll be just as fun as the Clash was, because the Clash was very, very fun. In my opinion, the Clash was the best race of Speed Weeks. So hopefully the road course is just as good in a points race with now 40 cars on the track. So that's it. Once again, very cool to see Michael McDowell win the race. Thanks for watching. I'll see you guys next time.